Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of In the Spotlight. I'm Mike Kenichi, and of course, that is the legendary group Survivor with a Moment of Truth. And it's pretty fitting we're playing that song because, of course, it was the soundtrack for The Karate Kid Part 1. And today I'm very honored because we have a very special guest. He's going to be in season 5 of Cobra Kai. He was in The Karate Kid Part 3 as the bad boy Mike Barnes. But let's not forget, he's also had a legendary career in soap operas as the irreplaceable AJ Quartermaine on General Hospital, and of course, the one and only Deacon Sharp on The Bold and the Beautiful. He also is the producer of Studio City, the one and only Sean Kanan. And Sean, I want to thank you for coming on today. It's a real honor.
Thanks, buddy. It's my pleasure. Good to see you.
Good to see you. So, Sean, if my memory serves me right, you originally went to school to do political science, correct? And then I think you didn't get to Hollywood till about May 20th, 1987. You were about 20 years old at the time, correct?
That's pretty accurate. Yeah, I was going to college at Boston University. I knew I wanted to start my career as an actor, so I transferred to UCLA, where I finished my degree in political science. And yeah, I did arrive in Los Angeles on May 20th, 1987.
Right. And if I'm not mistaken, obviously it takes some time to get some parts and stuff. But how you got the Karate Kid Part 3 was you were in a line of 1,500 people, correct, on a call, and you got chosen out of 1,500 people, right?
I did. It was an open call, and I showed up at the studio, and there were just droves. I mean, an endless line of people wrapping around the studio. And John Avildsen, who had directed the first two Karate Kid films, who had won the Oscar for Rocky, eventually came up to where I was standing in line and asked me to do a quick improv with him. And he looked at me and he said, "Okay, I believe that." He sent me inside to go screen test with Ralph Macchio.
Right. And it's really amazing, Sean, because this you hear this about a lot of actors that, especially the ones that have gone on to do great things, is they didn't originally start out as young kids getting into acting. It kind of evolved as time went on. And it's really amazing to me that you got such a big part in a iconic movie series to be your first one. I mean, that is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I I had done a couple other professional acting jobs. I had guest starred on a network television show, and I did a little horrible independent film. But yeah, you're right. And from an open call, it's really unusual because an open call really is often a bit of a publicity stunt. I mean, the thought that they were going to find one of the lead actors for the third installment of an internationally known franchise through an open call, it's not really how it's done. And to the best of my knowledge, I've never seen another one since I've been working in the entertainment business. So, in retrospect, I think it was largely a publicity stunt to generate some interest for the film. And, the fact that I actually got the role that way, which is so atypical from how an actor normally is hired for a role, is really an interesting story in and of itself.
Right. And you did have a martial arts background, correct, before the movie?
Yeah, I had studied Shotokan karate for several years. And then, of course, once I landed the role, they put me in intensive training with Pat Johnson, who did all the choreography for the Karate Kid films. And but here's the thing: I often reflect on the fact that had I had no martial arts background, I don't know if I would have gotten the role because, I'm not a black belt. I've studied martial arts for years, different styles and everything, but they had their work cut out for them to make me look like a guy that was a national champion. There were things I could do, there were things I couldn't do. I did do all of my own stunts, but they had to concentrate on, what moves I looked strong doing and ones that I couldn't really do effectively or learn in that amount of time, we didn't use. And for an actor who has no martial arts background whatsoever, I just don't know that anybody could have made that individual look like a national champion in, a month.
Right. And one of the things, Sean, like this was your first role, and I have to believe you were nervous, but you have said over the years that one thing you learned in acting, it took you a while, but you learned it, is you do have to be a little bit arrogant sometimes, because if you're not going to make the roles work. You're not going to be able to get the work that you need. So, I mean, how were you when you went into that first day of shooting? Were you scared to death, or were you confident?
No, I was probably too young and stupid to be scared to death. I probably should have been, but I wasn't, which is probably one of the reasons I got hired because, Mike Barnes was a very brash, cocksure,
Yeah.
charismatic guy. And, I had a lot of those qualities as a 22-year-old, kid. I don't know if I would use the word arrogant, but I think that you definitely have to have a strong sense of purpose and self and confidence, because if you don't believe that you're going to succeed in this incredibly difficult business, nobody else is going to believe it. You know what I
Right.
mean? So you kind of got to be your own biggest cheerleader. I'm a big proponent. I say this in my book, Way of the Cobra, too. In life, you can be your own cheerleader or you can be your own heckler. And it all comes down to, the internal monologue that you have. Are you listening to an internal critic, or are you pumping yourself up with positivity to overcome things that you might not intuitively know whether or not you can overcome?
Right. And what's ironic to me is, Sean, your first role almost was your last role, because I believe during filming you got seriously hurt. And I mean, it was touch and go. You had to have life threatening surgery, correct?
That is correct. On Christmas Day, 1989, I was having uh, emergency exploratory abdominal surgery because um, I had I was doing a stunt that really had nothing to do with karate, and I had incurred some internal bleeding from what I was doing, and I was bleeding internally for several days, and I was having a real bad pain in my left thigh, which I attributed to all the martial arts I was doing. So I was taking a lot of aspirin, which is a blood thinner, and
Right.
so I passed out. I was going into shock, and they didn't know what was wrong with me. They didn't know if they could save my life, and I had to not only eventually fight my way back into the film, I had to fight my way back into this world.
Right. And I mean, that's just probably the first time really in your life where you had to persevere. I mean, you've had moments before, afterwards, obviously, but I mean, if you could handle something like that, I bet going forward with any type of stuff you did, you had the confidence that I could do anything if I could get through that.
Well, here's the thing. I think when you're young like that, you have that confidence that you can do anything. And then when you're faced with your own mortality, which I was because of that incident, it shakes you. And the fact that I was able to make it through it, yeah, that gave me a renewed and leveled up sense of confidence. Um, and it kind of revealed a part of my character that I didn't know previously existed. And so, people think that Karate Kid 3 must be my favorite role because, it embedded me into the Karate Kid fandom, and it's a worldwide, phenomenon and all that sort of great stuff. And that's all true. But for me, the reason that the Karate Kid 3 was the most important uh, film or television show or anything else that I've ever been a part of is because of that experience of almost losing my life and having to, fight my way back in. And it was a life changing event. It's not one that I would wish on anyone, but in retrospect, I wouldn't trade it because of what I learned from it.
Right. Now we'll get to Mike Barnes in 2022, but let's talk about Mike Barnes 1989. And I mean, boy, did you really play that character to perfection. I compare that character a lot with the Kiefer Sutherland character from Stand By Me, where he just did not care about anything. He was very thick skinned. And I think the one scene where I said, God, I can't stand this guy is when he kicks the character Jessica when he's
Right.
attacked. So just talk about playing Mike Barnes, because you really, to make people hate this guy, you had to really believe in the character to do that.
Right. Well, I think Mike Barnes certainly had sociopathic tendencies, at least at that point in time. You know, he's obviously this kid who, on some level, must have tremendous discipline and drive to become a national champion and a 10th degree black belt. I mean, that's certainly no small accomplishment. Yet he's down in Los Angeles with no parental supervision.
Yeah.
So he must also have a pretty difficult home life, or some extremely understanding parents who maybe have some questionable judgment. I'm not sure which. Um, yeah, you know, I mean, a lot of that was taken care of in the script. I mean, it was written that this guy, you know, behaved this way. I think that very little of this was personal for Mike Barnes. You know, this was a business decision.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that he necessarily had any personal animosity towards Daniel.
Right. And the funny thing about it is, Sean, is that when I compare the two characters, I compare Johnny from Karate Kid 1 to Mike in Karate Kid 3, is you could see there were times Johnny had a heart. He just was under a bad sensei, a guy who was teaching him that
Right,
attack. Where, like you said, Mike, he was about making money, and he was also under the tutelage of Terry
right.
Silver, who was, you know, deranged in his own right. Because I'll tell you, if you thought Kreese was bad, I thought Terry, the way he played that part, I mean,
Yeah,
tremendous actor Thomas
yeah,
Ian
yeah.
Griffin is.
Sure is.
Yeah, so I mean, that was the difference between the two characters. But let me ask you, looking back on it all, I mean, it was your first role, and you've gone on to do great things, which we'll get into. But I mean, where would you say that role ranks for you?
Well, I would say, you know, like I just said, I think it ranks for me is probably the most important role in my life, but not necessarily for the reasons that most people think. You know, it's because of how it resonated with me as a, you know, as a, on a personal level, learning about myself. Um, it actually wasn't my first role. You know, as I said,
Right.
I had done some television work, and I did do another film before that. But certainly, it was far and away the largest thing that I'd ever been a part of. But you know, obviously, when I finished it and the film came out, and in subsequent years, I had no idea that there was going to be this television phenomenon known as Cobra Kai that was
Right.
going to allow me the opportunity to reprise a role I played, what, 33, 34 years ago.
Yeah.
And so, you know, for me, the Karate Kid franchise is the gift that keeps on giving.
Right. It definitely is. So let me ask you, Sean. 1993 comes. You get the role of AJ Quartermaine in General Hospital. Were you like inquiring about doing daytime, or was it something that just happened by accident? How did you get the role of AJ Quartermaine?
So I was very good friends with a guy named Steve Burton who played Jason Quartermaine, and Steve and I, especially when we were younger, had a striking resemblance to each other. And they were looking for someone to play Steve's brother. So Steve said, "Look, you really got to see my friend Sean." And so they had me come in and screen test, and I got the role. And you know, I got the role, and the role became very popular, and uh, that wound up being the dominant acting job and work that I had for the next couple of years. You know, I did do some other things, but you know, when you're working on a soap opera, you're shooting all year round. It's not like a regular television series where you go on hiatus
Yeah.
uh, for months and months at a time. So, you know, once I was on it and started to get some notoriety from that, it for a while turned into being a really great place to be.
And think about this, Sean. One of your For a guy who didn't start acting until he was 20 years old, one of your first big breaks, you're working with actors Pat Maria and Ralph Macchio, and then your second big break in a series that's been around 30 years at that point, you're working with tremendous actors and Stuart Damon and Leslie Charleston.
So,
So
yeah.
just, I mean, you got to say to yourself, I mean, you were young then, but you look back at it and you say, wow, I mean, the way my career turned out, I have no complaints.
I have no complaints. I mean, listen, uh, you know, you can construct in your mind as much as you want what kind of career you'd like to have as an actor, and almost undoubtedly life will have other plans for you. But, all things considered, I have been extremely blessed and fortunate, worked with some amazing people, traveled the world. And you know what? I feel like I'm just starting the very best part of my career now.
Right. So let's talk about the AJ Quartermaine character because Sean, I think a lot of people who are fans of General Hospital will always say that you are the real AJ Quartermaine, and that's no knock at Billy Warlock, who did a great job after you left. But I mean, you really perfected that character. But the one thing that always bothered me about that character is I felt like the writers just always made his life a train wreck. And I thought there was potential when he came back, which we'll get into in a few minutes. But the thing that bothered me the most, you talk about Steve Burton, is when they had your character run him into a tree and he loses his memory. I mean, the family was never going to forgive that character after that. And I mean, I just thought that was a crummy way for that type of writing for that character. What are your thoughts?
Um, I have very mixed feelings when it comes to my tenure as AJ. I have some great memories of some of the people that I worked with and some of the storylines that I was able to participate in. But I agree with you. I do feel that AJ is a character, not just, you know, under my stewardship when I played AJ, but in other times too, where the character, for one reason or another, has just never been given a real break. And it's not just the story that the character was given, but as an actor, it was difficult. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've got some very good memories about playing AJ, but there was also some significant frustration too in playing that character.
And one of the things that I really liked about the AJ character is even when he made mistakes and he sometimes butted heads with his brother Jason, the bond the two that they had on that show before the accident. I mean, they AJ loved his brother, and you could see that.
Absolutely.
You could see that all the time. And I mean, Jason loved AJ. I mean, he was his biggest fan. And to me, I thought that was some of the best work that you and Steve did. Now I know Steve was not crazy about playing Jason Quartermaine as time went on, but I
Right.
thought that the two of you, anytime you had scenes together, you guys just had tremendous
Yeah,
chemistry.
Steve, I've known Steve since probably 1988. And, I love Steve as a friend. And, Steve and I used to always say that when we would get writing that sometimes maybe was difficult to, you know, we used to always say that when AJ and Jason couldn't talk to each other, Sean and Steve always could. And,
Right.
and that we would bring that relationship to screen and that would come through. And Steve and I laughed all the time. I think there was, to a certain extent, a sort of an older brother, younger brother quality to it. And I think that through osmosis, came onto screen, even when what was written necessarily didn't support that.
Right. Another guy I enjoyed watching you doing scenes with as well was Wally Kurth. I thought you two had tremendous dialogue between each other, and I mean it was very comedic a lot of times between the two of you, which was the Quartermaines. I mean they were a
Yeah,
dysfunctional
yeah.
family, but just talk about Wally a little bit because I really thought that was another guy you had tremendous scenes with.
Wally's a really terrific person. I remember when I first got the role and I was about to go on the show, Wally uh, and I had lunch together through a mutual acquaintance. Set me up with Wally to have lunch so he could kind of talk me through what to expect, and you know, he was terrific. Ned and AJ had a very mm, thorny
Toxic,
relation,
yeah.
thorny relationship to say the least. But I always enjoyed working with Wally. He's a good, kind, caring person who's a really good actor, and he's a talented musician. And I haven't seen him a whole lot over the years, but every now and then we'll run into each other, and I'm always happy to see him.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, what better on-screen parents to have than Leslie and Stuart? I mean, Stuart passed away recently. And I mean, just a tremendous actor. I mean, I don't think there's anybody anywhere that has ever said a bad thing about either one of them. Just tremendous people.
They're both terrific. They were wonderful parents.
So let's fast forward a little bit and we'll get to Bold and the Beautiful. But your character, you returned to General Hospital in 2012 and you come back as AJ Quartermaine. I think
I think it was 2014 or 15, wasn't it? It was for the 50th anniversary.
Well, maybe you came back briefly, but I do remember you came back in 2012 because it was right when Steve's character had left the show and they brought you back. I could be wrong, but I was pretty sure you left in 14. But you know,
you may be right. I think I only came back for a year, if I remember.
It was a year and a half, maybe at the most. And that's what I wanted to talk about because I thought originally the potential was great. He was reunited with his son that he never got to know. I thought you and Chad, again, you want to talk about great scenes together. I loved the scenes between AJ and Michael, which I thought were great. But as time went on, Sean, I just felt like they kind of had you stale in your work. Like you never had a scene with like, I think an important part of soap operas is having a romance with somebody, and your character never had that romantic scene when he did briefly with the character Elizabeth Rebecca, but obviously I just felt like it was more about panic attacks and the relish thing with Tracy Quartermaine. So I mean, I could be wrong, but I really felt they missed the boat on that.
I would say that that's a pretty accurate assessment.
Yeah. So, I mean, talk to me. I mean, obviously for you to return, you had to see what they had planned for you. So, I mean, did they originally?
No, that's not really true. You don't really know what they don't lay it. No, they don't lay it out for you. And now, so, look, I was having a pretty good time for a while I was working there. I enjoyed working with Maurice Bernard and, Chad Duell, and it was great to be back with Leslie Charlson. But yeah, I think at some point the storyline diverged into a way that wasn't what I really had anticipated, and it was frustrating for me.
Yeah, I mean, I just felt like they missed the boat. There was so much more you could have done with that character, and in the beginning, I thought they were doing a great job, and I thought the scenes with Chad were tremendous because you two just had a great rapport with one another. But as time went on, I mean, it just seemed like it was more about the relish and the panic attacks, and I just said, where are they going with this? And then the way like it ended for that character again, I mean, he gets killed by Sonny, and I mean, they just kind of just totally write him off like he was non-existent and he didn't matter. And I just thought that was a terrible way to end that AJ character.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, so it definitely was. So let me ask you, Sean, 2000, you take on another role, and I think to me, it's probably your greatest role is Deacon Sharp when you join the Bold and the Beautiful, because you talk about just playing a powerful character. That character's been around off and on for 22 years now. So just talk about how that happened and about playing that character over the years.
Well, I went in to go meet with Brad Bell, and he had me read for him, but it wasn't dialogue written for Deacon Sharp. It was actually dialogue that was for another character that was already on the show, just kind of as a generic audition. It was for, what was the character's name? CJ. It was, they just grabbed some lines. And, I got the role pretty quickly, and, it was the right role for me. They were really great with allowing me to, put my personal stamp on it. And I tried to take some really big chances and push the boundaries and everything. And, it resonated with the fans. And I absolutely love playing Deacon Sharp. It's interesting to play this guy that has changed and evolved and matured as I have as a person. And that's made it interesting for me. I guess it'd be a little strange if I was still running around with earrings and leather pants at 55 years old. But I really can't tell you how much I love working on The Bold and the Beautiful. Everything from the people in front of the camera to behind the camera to the character itself. So it's absolutely been, one of my, top professional experiences in my career.
And you've had so many great storylines with so many on-screen partners, but I really enjoy the chemistry you have with Catherine. I just feel like Deacon and Brooke, they were just great together. And again, I mean, you just never knew what to expect from the two of them. So just talk about working with Catherine.
Well, I mean, she's a wonderful actress. She's has that same infectious laugh that Brooke has, and uh, we definitely have a good chemistry together. And I don't know. It would be interesting to see if the stars aligned, if Deacon and Brooke could ever have a relationship, or maybe it's just going to be that unrequited love thing for the rest of Deacon's life. Which that has interesting characteristics to it as well. Like I said, I don't know what's coming down the pike, so anything is possible. I had no idea this whole thing with Sheila was going to turn into what it has, and it's
Yeah.
been great. It's been really fun and really sort of off the wall, and this crazy thing that Deacon and Sheila are in this little apartment, and that as crazy as she is, and as dangerous as she is, are there actually some real feelings that are manifesting there? I mean, it's like, who
Yeah.
knows? It's the whole thing's crazy.
And I think the writers do a great job of that because they've got the fans guessing just when the fans think they know what's going to happen or they think they figured it out. It's not what it seems to be. But I really, one of the things too, when you've left that show a few times, I think like it wasn't necessarily a bad thing because when you returned, it just made your character even more powerful. And I especially liked, I mean, for a brief time, you even went on the Young and the Restless for a little bit. And I thought that was cool seeing Deacon, you know, enter into another area. I thought it was great.
Yeah, well, that was a great experience, and it's always a lot of fun to go over to Genoa City and work with an amazing and different group of actors. And you never know if Deacon might pop up again. Who knows?
Right. And I mean, let me ask you just do you think, as far as AJ goes, I mean, the character's dead, but in soaps, they could come back alive 20 different times. Do you think you could ever see yourself playing that character again, or do you think that's done as far as AJ goes?
No, that's done.
Yeah, that's done, which I figured. So let me ask you, Sean. Here we are, 2022. Now, when Cobra Kai came out in 2018, I mean, it was a phenomenon. Like I don't, like you said earlier on, people couldn't have imagined. Were you ever approached back then by like fans? Are you going to be in it? And did
Mhm.
the writers ever come up to you and say, "Listen, down the road, we'd like to have you in this series," or did you just
Um,
find out recently, like when you got
no,
the
I mean,
part?
as far as being approached by the fans, it was something that I probably heard in the beginning. I probably heard it, 25, 35 times a week.
Yeah.
And then as the show gained popularity and the successive seasons unfolded without Mike Barnes, it started to be about 100 times a week. And, in the last year and a half, it's been just, it's been hundreds and hundreds of times a week. Um, I filmed Cobra Kai last September.
Wow.
Uh, And so, I've had to keep it a secret for a year almost, which has been really difficult. Um, the producers knew that I wanted to be a part of it. I knew that they wanted to organically work in, as many characters from the original canon as possible. So I figured it was a matter of time, but I was like, okay, it's season 4, TikTok, when's this happening? And
Yeah.
then when I got the call, I was just so excited.
Which is what I love about this series and the writers, directors, producers is they have brought back every character from that movie franchise. I mean, if you think about it, every Allie, the character Allie comes back in season 3. I mean, Kreese came back, Terry came back, and now you're coming back. They've
Mhm.
done a great job with that. And one thing I love that they do too in this series is there are funny moments in those
Oh yeah.
episodes. Yeah, and I never realized how funny William is. As
Oh,
he is hysterical. I mean, he plays that Johnny character. I mean, he really makes you love. Like, you may have disliked Johnny in Karate Kid 1, but on the series, you love the Johnny character because he is just hysterical, and William does a great job playing.
well, he's like that in real life, though. I mean, he's got a brilliant sense of humor. It's dry. It's super witty, self-deprecating. I mean, I absolutely adore Billy and Ralph. They're both great guys. Yeah, as is Martin Cove, and this couldn't have happened to a nicer group of people, and I'm just so happy for all of them.
Right.
And now I'm happy for me.
Right. So let me ask you, did you have to do, you'd said like it's been years, obviously. Did you have to do any like martial art training to get ready for this? I mean, or did they just kind of get you through it? How did
No,
that go about?
I've kept up with my martial arts over the
Oh,
years.
you kept up with it, right? So, I mean, obviously you can't give a lot of stuff away, and I wouldn't want you to anyway. But just tell me what we could expect from Mike Barnes in season 5. I mean, I believe, like anything else, there's going to be good and bad. That's what I believe. But
The only thing I can tell you is this: that in Karate Kid 3, Mike Barnes was very much a unidimensional character. It was written that way. That's what they wanted, and I think all I can tell you is that in season 5 of Cobra Kai, 30 some years down the line, you're going to see more colors and more facets of who this individual is, and I think it's going to make it really interesting for the fans. And I think that Hayden, John, and Josh did a fantastic job with, creating this new evolution of Mike Barnes and his role in the Cobra Kai universe.
right. And what I also like too is obviously the characters Johnny and Mike never knew each other. Uh, Mike tried to restore Cobra Kai when he came in with Terry, but it's going to be cool to kind of see those two have scenes together because, again, the star pupil in the first one, and then he leaves, the Cobra Kai gets shut down, and then Mike comes in Karate Kid 3 and like I said, tries to resurrect it. So it's going to be cool to see how things go with Johnny and
But you're assuming that there are scenes between
yeah.
Mike and Johnny.
Well, I hope so anyway. But talk about Ralph Macchio though, Sean, because I mean, to me, it is amazing. Number one, I think he's at least 60 now, and he looks about 30 still. The guy
Yeah,
doesn't
he's
age at
terrific.
all. And I mean, he has done a tremendous job with his character, Daniel, as time has went on. Phenomenal actor. And
Yeah.
I really believe that there couldn't be a Cobra Kai without his character because it just wouldn't make sense.
Oh, absolutely. Ralph has done a fantastic job. He's a terrific actor. I mean, a lot of people might not know it or remember, but this is a guy that's done Broadway with Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
He did a play called Cuba and His Teddy Bear. I mean, this is a guy that has played a lot of roles and worked with some amazing people, and he brings all of that talent and experience to the show. And I think the great thing about it's the same thing with me and with all the characters. We're now more evolved human beings than we were when we did the original films. And Ralph is a more seasoned actor, a more seasoned human being, and you see that Daniel is a guy that, even though he's ostensibly very successful financially, he's got lots of issues. He's got flaws in his personality. Yeah. He's got struggles and challenges, even exclusive of his conflict with Cobra Kai, Kreese, and Silver. Trying to raise his kids, and so it's interesting to watch this guy, and you realize he's just another guy trying to figure it out, like the rest of us.
Right, and I'm glad you brought up the kids in this show, because talk about them, because I think these actors do such a great job. These kids have made you. Originally, when you're watching Cobra Kai, you're thinking about Johnny and Danny and that whole thing, or Daniel and that whole thing. But these kids have done a tremendous job, and they've really impacted that series.
Absolutely, all of them. it's been a lot of fun watching them mature as actors over the last couple of years. What they've been able to do physically with the martial arts has been extraordinary. And you know, the show is a really interesting, I don't want to say a hybrid, but one of the incredible successes that the big three have achieved is straddling two different age demographics. You know, it's different ages laugh at different things. They find different things interesting and compelling. And, you know, here you've got Johnny, who's kind of this almost anachronistic character with one foot in the 80s still. And he largely appeals to, you know, guys and girls that saw the original films, and there's that nostalgic attraction. And then you've got the younger kids that appeal to, you know, the younger generation. And so you find that you've got families coming together, watching it together, some of whom knew the original source material through the movies. Others are the kids maybe didn't even watch the movies and just fell in love with Cobra Kai and then sought out the movies afterwards. But it's something they can do together, and the show appeals to both groups, and that's a very difficult thing.
Yeah, it definitely is. And one of the things I take out of what the big three have really done in this series that is remarkable is they have shown you that there is no such thing as a bad kid. Maybe sometimes kids make bad choices, but every kid that's been on that show, their characters, they may have started off making wrong choices, but you see that they're good kids and they just needed some guidance. And that's what I like, because they have made every character, and the adults as well, showing you that there's no such thing as a bad kid or a bad person per se. It's just sometimes they make bad choices.
I think for the most part, that's true. I think there are some individuals that are, I do believe there are bad people that exist in this world,
Right.
but
Not
I
so much
certainly,
kids. Yep.
I certainly think that, you know, it's interesting you say that, because Robert Mark Kanan did an interview, and he was talking about my performance in season 5, and he was incredibly complimentary. But he said that initially he did not want Mike Barnes to come back, and I was, you know, I couldn't help but take it personally, because I thought, wow, he doesn't like me as an actor. And as I came to talk to him, and he said, look, what I didn't like was the fact that there was no redemption for Mike Barnes. And, you know, he said he argued with John Avildsen extensively about it, but ultimately, you know, they went with what John wanted, which was that there wasn't going to be a redemptive moment for Mike Barnes the same way that there was for Johnny when he holds Daniel's hand up and says, "You're okay, LaRusso." And Robert Mark Kamen didn't like the idea that a 17-year-old kid was, you know, quote unquote, beyond redemption. So I agree. I think that certainly, you know, with exceedingly rare exception, anyone under a certain age should always have a chance of redemption. Let's see what happens to Mike Barnes. Let's see whether, you know, he winds up getting redemption, or if he continued down the psychotic path that he started.
I think the best example of redemption, and I don't know if he could redeem himself, but you're seeing that the character Kreese, you see it in the last episode of season 4. You start to see that there is a soul in there, and that he doesn't like how certain things are going. So to me, I gotta believe Mike Barnes can redeem himself, because again, he was a 17-year-old kid. If a guy in his late 60s could have a shot at redemption, why can't Mike Barnes? So that part I really look forward to, and I'm sure a lot of the fans are going to look forward to that as well.
We shall see in a week.
So speaking about Cobra Kai, you wrote a book about 7 months ago called Way of the Cobra. Talk about that book, because I mean, that's got a lot of interest, and what the book is about is really cool. So just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, Way of the Cobra is my third book. It is a motivational book. The structure of the book is that I'm your sensei. You're in my dojo, the dojo of Cobra Life. Cobra is an acronym which is formed from the words character, optimization, balance, respect, and abundance. And the chapters are divided into belt. Takes you from white belt to black belt. And the book is both based on philosophy and strategy that I've used in my life to achieve some of my success and to overcome some fairly significant challenges. And, this is the very best advice that I have to give that has served me well and helped me make some monumental changes in my life. And I know it works because it's worked for me, and I'm no different than you are. And, I always tell people, before you think that I'm living on top of a mountain in Kathmandu, levitating 3 feet off the ground, this is because I've made every one of these mistakes a dozen times over. And I want to pass on the information. The book has done remarkably well. We just went into our third printing. And the sequel to the book, Way of the Cobra, Welcome to the Kumite, is coming out in October.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I mean, I think it's always good when you could write a book and there's a lot of motivational parts to it that people could really take from it. So I encourage everybody to get that book, read it, because
Thank
if
you.
you've looked at Sean's career, you could see that, I mean, everything you see with him is what you get. Another thing, Sean, that you've done the last few years, and you won an Emmy for it, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Is the show Studio City, and you play Sam Stevens.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little about that, Sean, because you've been nominated twice for an Emmy as lead actor,
Yeah.
but you also won an Emmy for your production team. So
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so Studio City's a show that I've been trying to get made for a very long time, over 15 years. And it follows Sam Stevens, who is an aging soap star on the #2 soap opera in the world called Hearts on Fire. And, he's a guy that when you first see him, you figure, wow, this guy's starring on a TV series, must be making lots of money. He's surrounded by beautiful women, blah, blah, blah. And really quickly you realize, again, he's just another guy trying to figure it out with all sorts of flaws and all sorts of issues, both on the show, within the show, which is the soap opera, and then in the real world of the show with his family and all sorts of stuff. The show is, we call it a dramedy because, it makes you laugh sometimes, it makes you cry. We've been extraordinarily blessed. The first 11 episodes were nominated for 16 Emmys. We won 3. It's on Amazon Prime. And if you haven't seen it, I would just encourage everybody to see it. It really has been kind of my baby, a labor of love. And I've been very fortunate that my wife, Michelle, has joined us as one of the executive producers and head writers. So I get to work with Michelle on all of this, as well as our other partner, Timothy Woodward Jr., who directed all the episodes and is also the executive producer and the other writer. And it's been one of the best creative experiences that I've ever had, and I'm looking forward to bringing everybody a lot more.
Right. And I mean, just the reviews that it's gotten. I mean, I haven't heard one negative thing about the show. And like I said, anytime you get nominated for an Emmy, that's a win. And when you win, that's a bonus. But think about this, Sean. That movie came out 33 years ago. So your first real big part, the one that really kind of cemented you, you have been able to stand the test of time, because sometimes, let's face it, it's a business where you could be going good for 4 or 5 years and then you don't see you again for a long time. You've been doing it steadily for 33 years. So, I mean, you have to be proud that you've been able to stay with what you've been doing.
I am proud of that. I think this type of career, a career in the arts, a career in entertainment, is very much a marathon, not a 50-yard dash. And there are moments when, when there's moments when things are visibly going well to the outside world. And there's moments when things are going well, but not necessarily visible to the outside world. You look at a guy like John Travolta, who had this resurgence in his career when he did Pulp Fiction. And, he was a guy that was a megastar, with Saturday Night Fever and Urban Cowboy and everything else. And then his career hit a significant lull, only to come roaring back. And, that happens sometimes for a myriad of reasons. People sometimes take time off to be with their family. They, sometimes people make mistakes in their career and have to sit in the penalty box for a minute, and, all sorts of reasons. But, I've always tried to keep my head down and work steadily. And, as I wrote Way of the Cobra, I really had kind of a personal renaissance where I was finally able to lock in certain positive and empowering things in my life and detach myself from ones that were disempowering me. And it's like the throttle just got thrown forward and my back hit the seat. And it's just been, so in other words, I was doing a lot of hard work and thinking I was doing a lot of things right, but I wasn't really getting the visible, tangible results that I wanted. And once I just dialed in a couple other things, the universe has kind of opened up to me, and I'm just so humbled and blessed. And it makes me just, want to do more to get this book into as many people's hands as possible, because I know the absolutely transformative effects that my book Way of the Cobra has. I'm gonna do a gratuitous plug here. If you want to get it, you can pick it up on Amazon or Kindle. And if you'd like to get an autographed and personalized copy, you can go to wayofthecobra.com. And it's a great time to read it right now, because the sequel is going to be coming out sometime next month. And you're going to want to have read the first one to maximize enjoying the second one.
Right. And I mean, I look forward to reading it. I can't wait. One thing I forgot to bring up, Sean, you have a good friend, and I think he was one of the runners up in the first movie, and that's Daryl Vidal.
Daryl Vidal, yes.
Vidal, yeah. Sorry for pronouncing his name wrong. But, you guys have had a long friendship, and just talk about him, because I think he's had quite a career, especially with stunts, correct?
Well, Daryl's an extraordinary guy. He is credited as being the creator of the crane kick, and playing himself in The Karate Kid. Daryl is a very successful author. He also continues to teach martial arts. I've studied with Daryl off and on over the years, and he is just an exceptional person. He's become a very dear friend of mine and a mentor in many respects. And Daryl's not an actor, although he's done some acting. But he's just a wonderful guy and a very interesting guy also.
Right. And I think it's great that you guys have remained friends for
Yeah.
all those years. That says a lot. So, Sean, I mean, tell me this. Just tell the fans before we go, what could we expect from A, the character Deacon Sharp, and B, Cobra Kai season 5?
Well, with Deacon Sharp, I think you're going to see that Deacon continues to get in deeper with this whole situation with Sheila. And now, in the midst of how dangerous it is, the question arises, is Deacon actually starting to have feelings for Sheila? And is Sheila having feelings for Deacon, or is she just manipulating him? And how long can Deacon keep up, this facade and this, dishonesty about Sheila staying with them? So there's that. And regarding Cobra Kai, I don't mean to be coy, but you got one more week to wait. You can tough it out, Mike. I've held off for a year. I can't give it away a week before. All I can tell you is this. I finally was given all of the episodes myself, and I'm not through all of them. But season 5 is epic. I think that it hits all the right notes, and it gets more difficult for a show to be compelling and interesting as the series goes on very often, and this is not the case. I think season 5 is going to be really, really well received and enjoyed by the fans, and I just cannot wait to hear what everybody thinks.
Well, I think it's going to be great. I mean, they have yet to disappoint us with that
Right?
series. Before we go, I do have one friend who is a big Deacon Sharp fan. She's been with you for 22 years watching your character. Her name's Arlene Bellotti, and she turns 50 this weekend. So she wanted to get a happy birthday from you. Just happy birthday, Arlene. Yeah.
Hey, Arlene, thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. The big 5-0. Let me tell you, the 50s are great. The best is yet to come.
Well, I really appreciate it. And Sean, thank you for giving me, as a fan, so many great years, so many great memories. Like I said, I mean, I've watched it and everything. And to me, you have played in my opinion, three iconic characters: Mike Barnes, AJ Quartermaine, and Deacon Sharp. And I'm sure this Sam Stevens, before all is said and done, is going to be just another guy added to your resume. So congratulations on a great career, and I really do appreciate
Thank you,
coming
Mike. I
on
really,
today.
I really appreciate all your support. It's wonderful to talk to you, and talk with somebody that is such an impassioned and knowledgeable fan of this. I really hope you enjoy season 5 of Cobra Kai, and I hope we have the chance to do this again at some point.
Well, I promise you this: after I watch all the episodes, I'm going to email you and give you my thoughts. But
okay, I want to hear it. Okay.
Yep. I appreciate
right, brother.
it, folks. That was Sean Kanan. I'm
Take
Mike
care, guys.
Kenichi, and this is In the Spotlight saying goodbye, everyone.